And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, March 3rd. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. A lot of football stuff today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to talk about Matthew Stafford and the Rams agreeing on a new deal. He will stay in LA, which I said all along that was going to happen, and many others probably said the same thing, and that is indeed what ended up transpiring. So we will talk about that. We will also talk about a trade that went down over the weekend, and that is the 49ers sending wide receiver Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders in exchange for a fifth-round pick. So we'll talk about that. We'll also get into talking about the NBA action from this weekend, that comeback by the Cavaliers on Friday to knock off the Celtics. We'll talk about the Knicks and a couple of their wins. LeBron and Luka continue to tear it up. So we'll get into all that stuff as well. We'll talk about Myles Garrett. So the Browns offered him a new contract, and he declined it. So he is really standing firm on, hey, I want to get out of here. So we'll get into that. And then I will continue my season overviews. Today we will talk about the Panthers and what they have to do to improve their team going into next season. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Matthew Stafford. So it was confirmed, and basically it was confirmed after my show, along with the production meeting as well that we had. And there was a little bit of a disagreement in the production meeting on if Stafford's going to stay or if he's going to end up leaving. Now, there were some that said he was going to end up leaving because the Raiders had a contract in place. And the Giants also, they offered a significant amount of money too. Like the offers that Stafford got from both the Raiders and the Giants were better. I think the Giants offered even more money than the Raiders, but I think if Stafford were to have gotten traded, he probably would have ended up getting traded to the Raiders. It seemed like the Raiders were ahead of the Giants in terms of the pecking order for Stafford if he ended up leaving. But then you also were getting reports that from Ian Rappaport saying that things were looking better between the two sides, between Stafford and the Rams. It looked like that they were going to come to an agreement, and that is what happened here. And Stafford took less money from the Rams, which I think there was a report out there that said he would be willing to take a little bit less to stay in LA. So that is indeed what ended up happening. And, he got permission to go see what other teams were offering and brought it back to the Rams, I guess. And they were like, all right, how about if we give you this? And he probably said, yeah, let's do that. I want to stay here. And here we are. And Stafford is going to most likely finish out his career with the Rams. Now, this doesn't add any more additional years, but is Stafford really going to go play anywhere else after the contract is up? Maybe they tack on another year or something at some point. But depending on how he plays, which I think he will play well over these last couple of years here, and maybe you tack on another year. And also, depending on if he wants to play, because, retirement he talked about briefly, but we know that wasn't happening. But I did say that now the rest of the quarterback dominoes will begin to fall. But I thought maybe this was going to take a little bit more time. It did not. But this is the first quarterback domino to fall. So Stafford has a new deal, and now the other teams got to say to themselves, all right, are we going to draft a quarterback depending on where they are, or are they going to sign a veteran? Or are you going to do both? For the Raiders, I talked about what Pete Carroll said earlier in the offseason, that this is not going to be a long rebuild. They want to start competing now. So the quarterbacks that are out there, it doesn't seem like they're looking at Aaron Rodgers. Russell Wilson could be a possibility. Sam Darnold could be a possibility. Justin Fields could be a possibility. I am going to do a segment this week where I'm going to predict where the remaining quarterbacks are going to go. What teams are going to end up doing what at that position. But like I said, I just named the free agent quarterbacks. You also got teams that could draft a quarterback. The Titans are at 1. The Browns are at 2. Giants at 3. It seems like the Browns are set on taking a quarterback because we got, more updates on Deshaun Watson. I think he underwent surgery on his Achilles again, going to be out for a significant period of time. They're going to need a quarterback. And they could draft either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. And it's going to be interesting what the Titans end up doing because it's possible they could trade out of the number 1 pick. And there are teams interested in trading up. The Giants, supposedly the Jets are interested in trading up. The Raiders could also be a team that takes a young quarterback because, they're right there to get one if the top 2 guys end up falling. The Jets, it's going to be interesting what they end up doing. If they want to take one of the young guys, if they trade up and, it seems like they want to go into next season with Tyrod Taylor, according to some reports. But we'll see. Now, for the Rams, back to the Rams and Stafford. This only makes sense, right? The Rams came this close. How many times have I said it? They came this close to knocking off the Eagles, who ended up going on and defeating the Chiefs. The Rams are there, and you see what's going on in San Francisco. The Cardinals were more competitive in 2024, but still the Rams were better when they were healthy. Let me add that in because, you go back to earlier in the season and they got destroyed by the Cardinals. But later in the year, the Cardinals had a chance to win the game late, but the Rams won. They won the division. Seattle, Seattle is not a bad team. I think they need to upgrade a quarterback. But they have a good roster. And another receiver that could be on the move is DK Metcalf because he's been part of some trade rumors. But you look at the Rams going into next year. They're not going to have Cooper Kupp. But you figure they're going to get another receiver to replace him. Puka Nacua is going to be the sure number 1. And he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. You have a good running game. I think they need to improve the offensive line because the line got hurt last year. That's somewhere they could address. Maybe some positions on defense as well. But that defensive line got better and better as the year went on. With Fisk and Jaden Verse and Jared Verse. So they have the pieces in place, and I think they could definitely run it back next year and win the division. I think the 49ers will have something to say about it, like I said, but, you do worry about them a little bit. Roster's getting older. But if 49ers could stay healthy, I'm on the stance of they're going to get back to how they usually have been. But that's just me. They could maybe be trading another receiver as well besides Debo, but we'll get into that in the next segment. But it's right there for the Rams. You look at the NFC, it's not as jam-packed as the AFC is. And they have one of the best head coaches in the league. They still have a window, and they have a young team with a veteran quarterback. I think they're going to be a good team once again going into 2025. But, there's obviously moves that need to be made, and I think they will address key areas, and they could be even better. But we'll now have to see what ends up happening with Cooper Kupp, because now that's the next thing when it comes to the Rams, what they're going to do with him. But this is good for them, because I think if you end up trading Stafford, and they were talking about, oh yeah, we'd be okay with starting Jimmy Garoppolo next year. Now, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo would lose every single game for you, but I don't think he's winning that many games. I think Garoppolo at this point is a backup quarterback. Now, there was those reports out there that maybe Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams would end up going there, but it I'm going to say it again. It would make sense for Rodgers. It would not make sense for the Rams. But knew all along that Stafford was going to come back. Was there a chance that maybe he could leave? I mean, the way things were going, it was all about the trends. Some days it was like, oh yeah, he's going to come back. Then there are other days where it's like, oh, maybe he is going to get traded. And then you get that Ian Rappaport report that things are looking are swinging in a more positive direction. And here we are. Matthew Stafford is going to be a Ram. Continue to be a Ram. And now we can move forward. So this didn't really last as long as the Brandon Ayuk stuff did, because that lasted for a long time. And the 49ers are definitely having buyer's remorse, because Ayuk didn't really do much when he was playing, and then he ended up getting hurt. And now there's reports that maybe he could be traded. The 49ers are listening to offers on him. But when we come back from our next break, we will talk about a 49ers receiver that got traded, and that is Deebo Samuel. So we will get into that news. First big trade of the offseason. We will talk about that and the impact that has on both teams when we return from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.